So thank you for having me on. I'm very excited as well. So my name is Deirdre Peters. I actually go by Dee, though. I am currently Director of Digital Experience here at Boston Scientific.
How would you describe what you do in simple terms?
That I make it easier to do business with Boston Scientific, whether you are a customer, a hospital or a clinic purchasing from us, or you are a sales rep working in our organization who's running your territory and looking to provide a good experience to your customer. That's what we make easier with the end goal of helping more patients. So
What do you remember about the first time we met?
I started out my career as a retail analyst in Staples, and I met you one day through one of our meetings, and I remember thinking like, I really like this guy, and I really like his vision. And so when a position opened up under your team in the category management and analysis group, I was really excited, and so I went for that opportunity. And again, I worked for you and I learned so much from you during that time that honestly is part of the reason I am where I am today.
How did you, in fact, get where you are today?
I got to where I am somewhat by drive and desire, but somewhat by luck as well. Back in about 2012, I was interviewing for some roles at Vistaprint, which was a company I would go on to work for. Instead, they suggested that my background might more align with a digital product manager role. And so I took that role. So I start the job, and I'll never forget my first day on the job. My boss sat down with me and he goes, "Hey, you're going to need this, you're going to need that, you're going to need to manage your products and your tickets in Jira." And I looked at him and I said, "What's Jira?" And I remember the look on his face, and he had to be thinking, what have I done? Who have I hired that I have a product manager that doesn't know what Jira is? And so I had honestly no business being in digital. I had no business being a product manager. I had no business being in that role. But I grew so much. I learned so much and was able to launch one of the product that's still in line today. And then, my career took a little bit of a turn. So I had a business school roommate reach out. She worked at Boston Scientific, and she said, "Hey, I'm working on this e-commerce project. I know you work in e-commerce. Let's talk. We don't have e-commerce at this company. What would it take to bring e-commerce to a medical device manufacturer, a 11, $12 billion company at the time with no online sales?" And I said, "Hey, what an opportunity that sits in front of me here to take a healthcare medical technology company and bring the ease of purchasing through an e-commerce site to this customer base." It's been an incredible journey here at Boston Scientific. Started out our commerce in one business unit, grew it across multiple business units, and now we're expanding globally. And
What do you need to be good at to be successful?
probably the most important thing is going to be relationships. So we talk a lot about technology, but at the end of the day, technology enables you to solve business problems. Solving business problems allows you to help people. But at the end of the day, nothing we do is effective without having built relationships. And especially when you're in a really large company where you're trying to, enable change, building relationships is probably the one thing that I would point to where I'd say it's not just about putting time on someone's calendar. It's not just about, making sure you're checking off your stakeholder list. It's really about getting to know people and getting to know who they are as a human before you dive into work. Um,
What's something cool or interesting that you worked on recently?
I'm super passionate about helping veterans. So I'm married to a veteran, but even before that, that's been one of my passions in life. And one of the cool things we've done recently here at Boston Scientific is we have a Veterans First campaign, and I was able to become a piece of that when we rolled out our e-commerce to our VA hospitals.
Mhm.
And just a really incredible group of people who have given so much for our country and for us to live the way we do. And so giving back to that group is something I'm passionate about. It's something I love and something I've been involved with lately. I also do mentoring, getting veterans back into the workforce. So helping out, with that transition back to civilian life. So that's something I've worked on recently that I really have a passion for.
And is there a reason why you feel that this work with veterans is particularly relevant or impactful now?
This sheer volume
Hmm.
of those who have been to war for this country
Hmm.
over the last, whatever it's been, probably unfortunately for our lifetime, about probably going on 24 years of war at this point. These are people that gave everything, and it's kind of, in my view, it's our duty now to provide, resources and open relationships for them to be able to integrate back into society and the workforce. So that's why it's so important to me and why I think it's critical now more than ever. Right? You have
Yeah.
to look at the impact you're making and the example you're setting for others and say, yes, I'm going to mentor these three veterans. I'm going to help them land on their feet. And in doing so, I'm setting an example for the organization, for the
Hmm.
world to also, jump in and help out. And so, I don't know that the work I do impacts beyond those that I work with, but I would like to believe and hope that it inspires others.
Is there something you've learned that you've taken away from this type of work that has really meant something to you?
But in terms of what I've taken away from the work is that the impact you have on even one human being can be life changing.
Hmm.
And so I've seen that happen now with several of the veterans that I've mentored. And that alone is just the most fulfilling thing for me. And it gives you purpose. And I think it gives you that empathy that is so important in the workplace, in your career, outside of work. Empathy to me is a often underestimated tool or emotion where you're really opening yourself to others' points of views or
What do you love about what you do?
probably of the work I do, about 20% of it is technology and innovation, and about 80% of it is actually change management. And I love what I do here. And I realized, I actually like change management. I love bringing people along on a journey. I love introducing new technology and getting everyone else to see the love of technology that I have for it. So I really enjoy that journey, and that's probably the biggest thing that I love about this job. Uh,
Management. Can we think of an example, a situation, a project where perhaps you had to employ these strategies to achieve the goal?
one of the big strategies I've had of employing change management, but making it very relatable for people, is kind of trying to understand how people operate in their daily lives and then bringing that relation to their work lives. And so to roll something out in a new industry is hard to do, regardless of what that technology is, or else they may not
Mhm.
fully see the value of it in the particular situation, let's say healthcare, where it just hasn't
Mhm.
been kind of a thing until now. E-commerce is one of those things that, um, it's in our everyday lives. So if they're used to e-commerce sites in their daily lives, and then they go to work and have a terrible experience, that's not that's not something anybody wants. And so
Hmm.
change management to me is making something relatable and just being able to tie the reason why behind what you're doing to their daily lives and getting others to recognize that.
What does a successful change management effort look like to you?
But I think that what makes change management successful is going back to something that we talked about briefly, which is empathy.
Hmm.
And why I say that is because in executing on change management, I'm very much more a show the value of something to somebody and they will believe than I am a, force them to do it and they will believe, because I just don't believe that that second option really works. And so I think to be successful at change management, you have to have a love for your fellow human beings, and you have to understand their needs and desires and what they're trying to do, and make what you're trying to do very relatable for people. And that requires understanding them as a person, understanding what their challenges and desires are, and putting together a plan that meets that while also accomplishing your goals. So that's, I think, why I love change management, because I do love connecting with other human beings. I love learning about people and what makes them motivated in life, and being able to take someone who maybe was a potential resistor and turn them into a champion and someone who's passionate as I am about something is very rewarding to me.
How might what you're working on change the world?
I hope it changes the world. I look at the work I do, and part of the reason I love being in healthcare is that I do feel like I'm making that impact. But one of the reasons I also think that I can work towards potentially changing the world is the example that I'm setting for my children too.
Hmm.
And, they see a mom, yes, I'm not there all the time, and that makes me a little bit sad, but they also know that mom works hard and they know that, mom has a career she loves. And in their world, moms run companies. And so I think that not only changing the world now, but thinking about our future and our children and putting that same desire to change things in their hands is just so critical and so important. So that's kind of, what I hope I have as an impact on this world.